Welcome everyone to the Be Thyself podcast by Joanne Lolash. Today's episode 12 and we have Mogestri Partha here from the Sumo Health and Harmony. Welcome Mogestri.
Hi Jo, thank you so much for having me. It's such a privilege to be here.
Oh my God, I feel privileged that you're here. I'm so excited to talk about the topic we're going to cover today. I've decided to bring you onto the podcast because in the most recent months, or maybe about 8 months ago, you and I went through my gene testing and gut microbiome testing, and you put together a plan, a protocol that would suit my profile, my genetic profile, and I definitely have seen the results. And I've been doing this for about 10 years, like in the health industry, and I've tried different things, and I've tried this and that and taken this supplement and done this and that.
Yeah.
But I've really found the results to be amazing by just doing this testing. So I've exercised for years and but I never felt that exercise alone and some of the supplements actually really worked. And I think when you feed your genes and you feed your type
Absolutely.
and you look after your profile, you actually can reverse, so many diseases and reduce inflammation and things like that.
Exactly, and it's all prevention, right?
Yes, prevention, which is my biggest thing. So this whole podcast is about holistic health. How do we optimize our health and which ways and what avenues to take and what areas to look at to be the best self, to be our best selves. So Mogestri is a clinical nutritionist and she specializes in Nutrigenomics and gut microbiome testing. Can you just tell the audience how long you've been practicing as a clinician?
So I started almost 15 years ago, and I chose genomic practice and microbiome testing because I've always been intrigued about really what is the drivers of ill health. Like, why do people present with signs and symptoms that leads them to diseases and other people don't?
Yes.
And I discovered Nutrigenomics, and I thought, wow, this is really exciting because this is going to answer all those questions I've had. So I delved into cellular health, how our cells strive to achieve balance, about minerals, the importance of that, about mitochondrial health as well.
You know, the mitochondria, my first book is about Mr. Mitochon.
Yeah, amazing, yeah.
And I wrote that like 8 years ago. And I think to myself, just over 8 years, I have seen so much research show up just on the mitochondria, whether that's related to cancer-causing circumstances, anti-aging, anti-satiety, anti-stress, anti-anxiety.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I thought of it so long ago, but just in the 8 years, people are just like developing and researching it more and more.
Absolutely.
And we know that cells, working on our cells is literally the best way we can optimize our health.
Absolutely. They are those little powerhouses, right, that drive us, and they don't last forever. They do run out of energy as well.
They do.
Yeah.
And the way, and in my book, I obviously do it in a fun, playful way, but I talk about what energy is, and then I talk about how the mitochondria maximizes its health, and that's through oxygen and nutrition.
Exactly.
Okay, so obviously we're talking about cellular health, but there's so many different topics connected to cellular health and that cause our cells to be either, working optimally or not working optimally. What do you think is the best of all the practices?
Look, I really did research this when I was, trying to find my core, my core interest. And I discovered that, the best way to really understand what happens with each and every individual is about their genetic makeup. So really what makes them so individual from the next person. And that's when Nutrigenomics came into play. And the more I got into it, the more it made sense to me because you can completely understand the drivers that leads to signs and symptoms.
Yeah, and that's the core. So I'm a core person. I'm like root cause.
Exactly.
So I can keep taking a liver supplement and I keep taking turmeric, but if I'm not feeding my genes, I'm going to keep having the same things happen, and I keep on a surface level sustaining my cells and my health.
Yes.
And that's what I love about this, and I feel like the results have showed up like immaculately. Like I'm I'm so
That's
intrigued.
good, yeah.
Yeah, and like, yes, it did take like maybe 8 months for it to 100% show up. And, and if I keep doing that same regime, I wonder what I would or what would happen in the next 6 months. And so you feed the ailments of things that you're pre-susceptible for. And so you reduce the susceptibility in doing that.
That's exactly right.
Literally, and I think nutrigenomics is the way of the future. So if someone comes to me and asks me for health advice, I'm like, don't waste your time, don't waste any more money. Just go and do this test, get the profiling that you need, understand how you're made up, what it is that you do to optimize your health and be as the best version of you, and focus on that. And like, don't get me wrong, Mogestri, I know I shouldn't eat chocolate, but I definitely eat chocolate. But that's like 20% rule.
Yeah.
And then obviously 80% all my subs.
It's all about balance.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
And I know that's not the best thing for me, but I actually just have that craving. And I actually know why, because we talked about it. My GABA receptors are not working 100%. So I need that serotonin
Yeah,
hit.
that calming response. Yeah, exactly.
Not the best way, but you know, here and there, it's not that bad. So what is nutrigenomics and how did it come about, just in a brief?
So it actually came about by the Human Genome Project, which started in 1990 and ended in 2003. And the main aim was to really map and sequence the entire human genome.
Wow.
And, with this evidence now and this information that we have, we can actually target treatments, offer personalized nutrition, tailored medicine, and just understand the core of every individual, like what, makes them more predisposed to certain diseases.
Yeah.
And obviously, whatever you inherit on your genes, that will never change.
Yes.
But it's your expression. So, your stress, your malnutrition, I would almost call it. If you're not feeding your cells with the nutrients that you need more than the person next to you, you obviously are going to suffer those, effects.
100%. So if I'm eating something and you're eating something, but our genomes are not the same,
exactly,
then I might get benefits from that food, but you may not, and it could work the other way
vice
around.
versa, exactly.
And so when you're understanding, because a lot of the times in most of my podcasts, I'm very faithful, and I do believe we're all born here on earth for a reason. We have a purpose.
Yep.
We're all children of God. And the reason why I love nutrigenomics is because it actually helps every person target their makeup to optimize that theory that I have. So not like one size does not fit all. And we're all made individually. And so I feel like nutrigenomics is just that, from a nutrition perspective, helps you tailor and like hone in on you and me and others,
And the main thing about genes and nutrition is that we often oversee or don't really understand the importance of those vital nutrients, such as magnesium, which are actually cofactors, for energy production, for neurotransmitter production. We neglect it. We think, magnesium just, for muscle workout. If I go to the gym, I'll take magnesium and I don't need it. But basically, each and every one of us are so depleted in magnesium. Yeah.
Because our bodies are mainly running on inflammation markers.
Yeah.
And magnesium is definitely one cofactor that's robbed in that space.
Yeah.
But with many other cofactors.
Of course,
I say it, my term is they are the firing and wiring of the body.
Yeah.
So like they're the core basis. It's like me running on an empty tank of petrol and my car's just going, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like they are the basis.
Absolutely.
And I usually use that term when I'm doing training and educating. Oh, wow. So why do you think this is so important?
In terms of?
I know we've covered like the reasons why, but in one sentence, why do you think nutrigenomics is so important for us?
Because now we know what actually is on whoever gets tested, what's on their genetic makeup.
Yes.
What nutrients they need more than the person next to them.
Yes.
And, it's not it's not a life sentence. Whatever you inherit on your genes, it's not a life sentence.
Yeah.
That's why we use nutrition, we use lifestyle measures, we use stress reducing mechanisms to switch off or switch on those imbalances.
Yeah, I remember when I got interviewed on the podcast here with Daniel, he's like, I didn't want to do the test because I didn't want to know what I was pre-susceptible for. I'm like, why would you not want to know? Like you could actually help save that. But that's more mindset, like, oh my God, I'm predisposition. So you start to like be a hypochondriac, like going, oh my God, I'm going to get this disease. But actually, if we feed those genes, we will prevent the disease.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it was not just nutrients, because a lot of people are like, oh, the supplements don't work. But if you're taking supplements that you actually need, that are predetermined for your makeup, you're actually feeding your whole body exactly what it's determined for. And that is the basis and understanding of how we can thrive, like how my body can thrive, my mind can thrive, my everything.
It's just optimizing all the functions.
That's pretty much it.
Yep, exactly.
And I don't think it's just nutrients or vitamins. I actually think it's the training that we do. It could actually be the job that we do, because jobs, like I know, and I've heard this before through a naturopath, that if you say you methylate and you don't have any generic variations along your family line, but you could have a really highly stressful job in this lifetime, and that causes you to undermethylate.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? And so that alone, the undermethylation, can cause the next generation to have your genetic profiling.
So there's a term for that, and it's called dirty genes. So we can dirty our genes by leading a lifestyle that just increases our stress. Even though, like you said, we don't inherit any variants, we can actually cause a slowing down or suboptimal function.
Yeah, and then that sets the next generation up. Like say for example, it's my kids, or their kids. So you set them up for that. So you may not have it, but you could create it. All right, so today we're going to talk about genomics and the 3 different areas of focus. And I would love to start with my favorite topic, which is the liver.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about the liver?
Absolutely. So it's also my favorite topic because I think we underestimate how important the liver really is. I mean, the liver is used as a filter for toxins, balances hormones, balances neurotransmitters. It actually balances our blood sugar levels, which are so important now because so many people are insulin resistant.
Yeah.
But
that's really common. Like people that don't even have it in their genetic variation, I find like no one in their family had it, and then they get the insulin resistance.
Yeah,
that's
so
definitely
common.
a lifestyle.
Yeah.
But
what's also important is the liver is important for activating your thyroid hormone, your T3. So even though T4 is made in your thyroid gland, we need our liver to function optimally. The main and most important antioxidant in the liver is called glutathione. It's actually known as the master antioxidant, it means it's the antioxidants of all antioxidants.
Yeah.
So it's important for destruction of free radicals. It's important for actually compounding toxins into molecules so they can be excreted from the liver. But here's the interesting thing. Not everyone can produce glutathione or has the ability to have it in adequate amounts because of those genetic variants
so those
that they
people
inherit.
Will be doing what another person does, but they're not, for example, detoxifying like the other person does. And that's, to be honest, that's been my whole issue my whole life. Like I realized that. That was why I was always highly inflamed, or I had like gut dysbiosis or a liver burden.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
Like take, for example, estrogen dominance.
Oh, that's a massive one for
That
me
is
as
so
well.
important because a lot of ladies now, and even men, it's not just women, understand the significance of, how important it is to detoxify, but they just can't because of maybe they lack glutathione in their genetic makeup. They inherit variants that doesn't allow the pathway to completely, metabolize and synthesize.
Yeah. I just feel like the liver is the most underrated organ, but the most important.
So important.
But the thing is, it's also the genetic variants, they influence the liver as well. So if we're going to go root cause, like for example, for me, because I wasn't methylating properly, I wasn't detoxifying properly, that's causing my liver to chug because I was always in the high inflammatory bracket, you know what I mean? And then it causes like the trickle-on effect.
And
so the glutathione that I've been taking, the reduced form and the liver with the glutathione and all the liver supplements and even the fish oils, which I've done fish oils for the years, but it was just like the very surface type of stuff. And then I was also like, I'm now eating for my genes, except for the chocolate part. It's like, oh my God, my weakness, literally, I need to up my B so I don't.
And up your magnesium maybe?
My magnesium, actually, like, you know, at night when I'm going to sleep, I'm like, damn it, I didn't take my mag, and I'll go to bed. But yeah, like I'm pretty much up to date, I would say, than most people, but like anything could affect, you know, your gene variation, right? Like you're saying like stress and all that sort of stuff, like emotional
inflammation,
stuff.
anything.
Like cortisol, like high cortisol from anything driving it.
But really, before we go on, like the liver has all these different phases of detoxification.
Yeah, that's right,
Now, the thing is, you can't go through phase 1 and then phase 2 and then phase 3 because it doesn't really work like that.
You
really need to start with from the bottom. Make sure that you're eliminating properly, that you're not constipated. You're excreting your toxins through your urine as well, so your kidney function must be great.
But isn't that connected to the liver? Like usually it is if the liver's chugging, then there's somewhat a kidney problem.
But you can't be blocked in phase 3 because there's certain metabolites and nutrients that are needed for all phases of detoxification. So glutathione is actually a major phase 2 detoxifier where it compounds the nutrients. And then it sends it to phase 3 as a compounded molecule. But if phase 3 is blocked up, then your liver's still not going to be functioning properly.
And that was, I think, my issue. Like I from the ground up wasn't. And we did the matrix detox. Was it the matrix?
Yeah. That's just to get everything going.
And I remember like getting the results from that, but it was consistency as well, along with training, along with like all the other stuff. I remember I was just dancing when I got my health back. And I love dancing, but like I was just dancing because I felt so energized.
Isn't that amazing?
And I think that's the key. Like you can keep going for the rest of your life if you're healthy. And I think health is actual wealth. Obviously, you know, you continue to work and make your money, but you know, if you're healthy, you can keep driving
absolutely. That. You'll keep hitting your goals.
Exactly, you know me. The biggest goal hitter. Do we know if we have this antioxidant present in our liver? Like, or how do we know?
So you will know when you are very sensitive to environmental pollutants, sensitive to chemicals. You react more. And from a female perspective, your PMS symptoms are actually worse.
Oh, yes.
You get more the cramping, the mood swings, because the liver actually breaks down, so important in breaking down estrogen and all your hormones for hormonal balance. You'll know if you get very inflamed as well prior to your period.
Yes, me.
So all of that is glutathione things that we need to focus on.
I have definitely I take about 750 a day. And like some weeks I get a little bit, whatever, but I take about 750. NAC is also
NAC is good. NAC is also good. The precursor that works in the lungs, which contains the the amino acids to make glutathione. So that's what I was going to say. If you if you inherit variants on your GSTM or GSTX enzymes, which are a family of enzymes, you actually don't produce glutathione or produce it in very small amounts. But if you take the precursors, the amino acids, and once it's in your bloodstream, your liver actually produces glutathione.
I know,
which is so good.
The ground up, and that's why they say like the precursors are more superior, right? Because your body still has to work to make it, which makes it more powerful instead of me because I remember at one stage I did glutathione, but I was so inflamed. I was like, I'm doing the very surface type thing. And now I know it was everything that I had to do to get to the point. And the reduced form, you say, is better. And the NAC is better as well.
Is better. Liposomal forms are really good as well. But because glutathione molecule, it's absolutely too large to enter our cells, period. It's not going to get there.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And not only that, but the way I see it on a cellular level, if your cells are highly inflamed, and forgive me if I'm wrong, I know that when the cells are inflamed, nitrogen and hydrogen take up the space. Is that right?
Exactly.
There's no room for permeability, like of anything. So I say this when I'm training my clients. I'm like, if I'm going to take a grapeseed or a selenium or a D3 or any kind of antioxidant, if my cell is inflamed, I'm only going to get a 10% saturation rate.
Absolutely.
And that's why when the business we've worked for, because Mogestri and I worked at Ultra Nature together, we work at Ultra Nature, the glutathione is the primer.
Reduced, yeah.
And it's the basis in making sure that we're going to optimize that saturation rate of all the antioxidants and all the, minerals and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So I love that. And our liver's the best because the no one's done a liver at 250 milligrams of a glutathione reduced.
Exactly.
I remember one other brand did it at 40 milligrams and it's like and it wasn't even a reduced form.
Oh, yeah. That's just crazy.
Yeah.
And, the liver's at the brain, so we need to look after it.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
I love like the liver's so important. Like I talk about it all day to my clients. I'm like, the liver is chugging because there are these factors. What do we need to do to support it? That sort of thing.
Yeah. It cops a lot of abuse.
It does. And like everyone blames the liver, but I'm like, hang on, let's look at the why.
Yeah,
exactly. They blame, the liver's not working properly. But I'm like, your liver's not working because of these are the reasons why your liver's not working.
Yeah.
It could be high cellular toxic load. It could be gut dysbiosis, low stomach acids, low bile production, high inflammation.
So important. And I think people take advantage of the fact that the liver can regenerate. It's the only organ that can completely regenerate.
Yeah.
Because they think, you can take it. But it can regenerate given the right nutrients.
Yes, exactly. But for you as well. And that's where genomics, I think, and like we're talking about liver, but let's talk about it with genomics, which is the whole topic today. So doing a profiling and saying, hey, these are the things that you're predispositioned for. If you focus on these, we can support the liver. We can regenerate the liver.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. So how do we ensure we have adequate glutathione levels? Have you...
So it's not so much about the glutathione levels. It's about, like I said, having those precursors in your system so your body can actually start making glutathione.
Okay, yeah.
So there's never like a one size fits all in terms of, how much you would really need because everyone is so different in terms of how much they can actually activate.
Yeah.
But looking at our vegetables, looking at the cruciferous, the brassicas, the broccoli, cauliflower, kale,
eliminate
Brussels
processed
sprouts.
foods.
Oh, yeah, those ultra-processed foods, inflammatory oils, seed oils, reducing that inflammatory response. Also our sulfur vegetables, so the onions, garlic, that's really important as well because they form healthy cells. Yeah. And then also looking at that toxic load.
Yeah.
If you're having a protein, know your source.
Yes.
Really, really get to know your protein supplier, I would say.
Mogestri, I've definitely tailored my life to feed my genomes, but I don't think I've even gone 100%.
It's not everyone can. No, it's
just because with life, and I think I do a lot that's well, but with my life and work and stress, I also do. I know when I'm having something that's not part of or good for my genomic profiling.
Yeah.
But I do think I work on it a lot. I just wondered if I did go that full haul, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I probably I look younger and healthier than what I did when I was 27.
Yeah.
And I'm 37. So and that's really just working on my cells and my genes.
That's so good.
Genomic profiling.
And I think back in the days, when all of this wasn't almost common knowledge.
Yes.
It was a lot harder to find, I don't know where the protein came from. But now we all, that's all.
Yeah.
Everyone knows. Everyone can find out that information out.
Yeah, and I think people are becoming more health conscious or just even curious.
Yes.
Because they're suffering these symptoms, these consistent symptoms.
Yeah.
And they're like, what's going on? And at some point of your life, you're going to have to go, right, why do I keep having this issue? I'm so over this. And you're on this same cycle.
Absolutely.
So you have to change your course. You have to change, what it is that you need to do. Look, are there any recommended glutathione supplements?
Look, I would say look at the form. Like if it's reduced, it's going to enter your cells.
Yes.
Liposomal just absolutely melts into your cells. So that's a great form as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not going to name any brands, but there's quite a few out there now.
Yeah. Definitely. And NAC, like you said.
And NAC,
NAC.
NAC is good. Yeah.
And, okay. All right. So you know, we've discussed the liver and, you know, all the symptoms and the supplements and how do we know if we've got, you know, enough glutathione and antioxidants. Can you just explain the link between the gut and the liver?
Okay, so that is so important.
Yeah.
Even though they each perform their own specific functions,
Yeah.
they rely on one another to perform optimally. So the gut-liver axis, you know, there's a constant two-way communication between both organs. And one mechanism is to something, a term called metabolic endotoxemia,
Okay.
which is what happens when we have a leaky gut. You know, when we have a leaky gut, you have all these toxic metabolites and toxic bacterial byproducts that actually are now in your bloodstream.
Yes.
And they cause a lot of inflammation,
Yes.
especially in the liver. So free radical damage, inflammation, oxidative stress, and they just tax, the liver's already taxed, you know, every day, but it just makes it more, you know, less efficient.
I read this article once that you could have the healthiest functioning liver and get an endotoxin parasite in your gut, and that could actually cause, through the blood stream, the blood barrier, the vessel, to cause the liver to be, like, to have the endotoxin enter the liver and then cause the liver to just completely be inflamed.
Yeah.
So I remember reading an article about it and I was like, wow, like, this is the thing. So say I'm doing all the work, Mogestri, and I've done everything and I'm really, really healthy. But guess what? I had a parasite for some reason.
Yeah.
Because I didn't look at my gut testing. I just was looking at my genomic profiling or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I get this endotoxin that causes my liver to burden. I could be getting sick and ill based on just that one thing. And this is why I'm so obsessed with the gut, because when I do the testing, because I remember I had like really bad estrogen and I was under methylating like years ago and I was really highly inflamed.
Yeah.
And the clinic I went to, they didn't test for my gut microbiome. But because I'm educated around the space, I literally went to another clinician and I said, I want you to do me a gut microbiome test. I had a parasite and that parasite was directly linked to an increase of estrogen.
Oh, wow. Look at that. Yeah.
I forgot the name. One of my friends knows it. She can clarify it. But I remember it was directly linked after all those months and years, even though I did compounding Bs and, you know, supported my detoxification and did my exercise and ate all that stuff. I literally like had this parasite.
Yeah.
And obviously I did a parasite cleanse. And, you know, to be honest, every 3 months, Mogestri, I'll do a parasite cleanse.
Yeah.
Because in the meats that we eat, you don't know.
You don't know what's in there. Yeah.
You know, people love sushi, raw fish. And like I must say, like, I have it here and there. I'm not saying I have it all the time. I'm very conscious. But I do have it. I've got to live a little. But I don't know. I could get one parasite from the sushi.
I know. It's so common.
Yeah.
And that is such a common, you know, food for everyone.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the gut liver, obviously, we know you can't go with one without the other.
Absolutely. And that's why it's always like, if you look at any organ in the body, it all comes back to the gut, right?
Yes, it does.
And, you know, healthy fiber and that diversity of, you know, bacterial species are so important. But more important is to, you know, tighten up those junctions, those tight junctions that can come apart when the gut is inflamed.
And I know, like, a Saccharomyces boulardii or even a prebiotic, the pre's.
A prebiotic, but also, you know, glutamate. And
glutamate,
all of that is
which
really,
I take that's my gut powder.
To tighten,
Like, that powder I take is literally all the pre's, anti-inflammatory, Saccharomyces.
Yeah.
And I found that in all the years that I had my health issues, it wasn't the pros. It was all the pre's.
All the pre's,
I'm predisposition, like I have low fecal IgA secretory, which can keep me in that, like, you know, low susceptible immunity.
Yeah, the pre's are actually the food for the pros. So you need them.
You need them. And but no, like, for me, it was actually like the lack of short chain fatty acids, high inflammation, all of that sort of stuff.
So we actually now calling those our postbiotics because you know, these are such important metabolites for balancing our entire system. So it again balances estrogen, balances our neurotransmitters, reduces cardiovascular disease risk. it's like a game changer.
Yeah, I know, and I swear by that now. Look, I should probably what I used to do is do the pre's regularly because that's my predisposition.
Yeah.
And then I'd buy a bottle of probiotics and I'd take it every second or third day.
Exactly.
Just to make sure that, you know, I'm balanced in my gut microbiome.
So important.
And just thinking about it, I need to top up on one soon. All right. So, you know, we talked about the gut and liver. Like, next question is, how do you control these responses? I guess we just mentioned how you can control it by like the postbiotics and the prebiotics.
Yeah.
You know, increasing stomach acids, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and just also an antioxidant-rich diet. So you don't forget all those deep colors, vibrant colors. We need everything. Everything has a purpose.
Yeah. You know, MS is like, I know people have been diagnosed with MS, and MS is not even in their family line. And I read this article years ago. This woman, she actually healed herself from MS by having a coloured antioxidant and literally cut off processed food.
Look at that.
Like literally, and I'm not saying she's not in the predisposition for it, but when someone comes to me and says, I have MS, and I look down their line and no one in their family has MS, I'm like, this is diet and stress related.
Yeah.
And I actually asked her, I spoke to that girl and she said when she was younger, she used to get sick regularly. And so her mum would give her antibiotics regularly.
Oh, okay.
But back in the day, everyone was doing that. Now people are more aware, but there was no recovery from the antibiotics. Yeah. And so now she's like whatever age and she's got MS. And for me, I'm like, hang on.
It's inflammation. It stems from inflammation.
Yeah.
Basically,
and like I'm so passionate about thinking you can reverse it, you know, each to their own. And this is why I'm actually talking about this today, just to educate people.
Yeah, we have so much of control of our bodies now.
You can heal yourself.
That's what I said with this Human Genome Project. You know, all that information is at our disposal. We just need some direction.
Yes, that's what it is. And I feel inflammation is literally the driver of every disease. But where the inflammation comes from is everyone case by case.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, MTHFR.
Okay.
Oh my God. Everyone I speak
Where
to.
do we start?
Where do we start?
Actually, we start at the beginning. Okay. We start with methylation.
Okay. So MTHFR and methylation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basic chemistry, what is a metal group? So metal group is a carbon atom attached to 3 hydrogen atoms to form a carbon group. And MTHFR is an enzyme that's created by the MTHFR gene that needs to be sort of attached onto every single gene to activate it, to turn it on or turn it off, upregulate it or downregulate it, depending upon the presentation.
Yeah.
So when it comes to methylation, basically methylation is a process of, attaching that MTHFR gene onto a protein or molecule so it can reduce it or activate it or allow that pathway to go through properly.
Okay. Yes.
So if we're not methylating, our whole body function system just slows down. We're not functioning optimally and we're more prone to inflammatory states and diseases, signs and symptoms.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
And I know that's a big one because everyone I speak to, but the thing is I don't discover it till later because I can't fall pregnant or they have some sort of like things going on, like symptoms, which you mentioned.
Yeah.
You know.
So chemical sensitivities, difficulty conceiving, basically to make another human, we need to methylate.
Yeah, I know, right?
If we don't,
you're missing so many steps. You're missing all the nutrients.
Dysregulated. Yeah, because, the thing is with methylation, our body, every single cell in our body renews yearly, day to day, monthly, whatever. And if you're not methylating properly, if you don't have those nutrients, you're not going to be, having adequate liver function to even break down toxins.
Look, this is a big statement, and I know it's very complex with cancer, but some with MTHFR could be more predisposition for cancer because they're not regenerating cell health.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we know cancer is cellular death. So, okay.
Especially hormonal related cancers. I mean, we're not going to make a statement about that, but I mean, it's part of the puzzle. We need to look at it.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So like, obviously we talked about why it's important because that was going to be my next question. So the famous MTHFR gene, how do we support it?
So let's just talk a little bit more, I think, about the MTHFR
Right, tell me.
gene, what it really does. So
Yeah.
it's so important for breaking down folic acid. Okay, so why do we need folic acid? So here's the thing.
Yeah.
Back in the days when, scientists discovered how important folate was to every single cell, because every single cell has folate receptors, throughout our body.
People just think folate is for pregnancy. Obviously, people who are not in the education, the nutrition space, but yeah.
And what they did was they fortified foods that the population are most likely to eat. So we're talking grains and cereals and pastas, wheat. Everything was fortified with synthetic folic acid. Now, when the Human Genome Project was completed, we all got this information about 1 in 4 people actually inherit variants. The two most common variants are the MTHFR C1677T and the A1298C.
Oh my God, this is so complex, Mogestri. These big terminologies, but in a basis nutshell.
But basically, those are the two most common variants we either have on our MTHFR profile.
Okay. Yeah.
It causes a reduction of breaking down of synthetic folic acid to activate it to
folate.
Folate needs to be activated to methyl tetrahydrofolate. That's the only form that can enter cells.
If you've got the MTHFR gene. Okay. So it would be a disservice for someone who's got the MTHFR gene to take folic acid because it would sit in their bloodstream, be left unsynthesized, unmetabolized.
What's more important, it blocks all the folate receptors.
So it blocks it. It leads to high histamine.
Yeah.
And God knows what high histamine. Yeah. And, can I tell you, I've been the histamine queen my whole life. Literally. Like literally for 10 or more years, I've been doing this research and understanding.
Yeah.
Like if I was to fall pregnant, it would be the worst thing for me to take synthetic folic acid. I have to take active form. Literally, it'd be a disservice for me.
Absolutely. And, that's why it's so important, to educate, young women who are thinking of, starting a family.
Yes.
The importance, and not just females. Not just males as well.
I know, but not even pregnancy, like for mood, for
everything.
What are the other reasons folate's important?
Everything for, preconception is one big one.
Yeah.
But PMS, signs and symptoms.
PMS is like a massive thing.
Yeah, chemical sensitivities, neurotransmitter production. I mean, we're going to talk about that as well. Why people are quick to anger. Why do people get so irritated?
I did that in the last podcast with Dina. We did a genetic profiling and even personalities because of the makeup of them and how they process information or how they process emotions or whatever based on their gene variant, or their gene type.
And one very, very important function of methylfolate is actually to break down homocysteine.
Yeah, and tell us about the homocysteine.
The homocysteine is a byproduct of the methionine cycle. Now, the methionine cycle produces ATP and goes on to produce SAM, which regulates how we produce MTHFR. So it's our regulator.
Okay.
So if the homocysteine does not go into the methionine cycle because we have, malfunctioning MTHFR variant, it actually builds up in our system and creates inflammation. And that inflammation is directly related to cardiovascular disease.
Wow. So someone with that could be predisposition for cardiovascular.
Yeah.
But basically because they haven't supported their gene type for that many years.
So that's why every single thing that we break down or we is a metabolite in our body has to be actually broken down further to be regenerated into a cycle or excreted. It can't just sit in our system.
No, because that's where the high histamine happens, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so it causes the other problem. So it's either that we excrete it or we metabolize it and create the end product.
And then going back to the liver, make sure your liver's compounding it and getting it out of your system.
Yeah, and that's a healthy functioning human.
Yeah.
Wow. This topic on MTHFR is crazy because so many people I know personally have been like, I got diagnosed with MTH. I'm like, a lot of people have it.
Yeah. So let me just put that caveat out there because, a lot of people will go and get this whole genomic, profile done and then they want to act on those expressions.
Yeah.
But it's not about that.
Yes.
Okay. It's absolutely, totally. It's about how you lead your lifestyle.
Yes.
You could have a malfunctioning variant on your gene And if you are exercising, you're sleeping, you are looking after, managing your stress, you're eating correctly,
Yeah.
you won't have any issues.
Yeah.
Or you're less likely.
It's just less likely because you got that pre-susceptibility, but if you're supporting it,
Absolutely.
then you're less likely. But it's everything, like it's lifestyle, it's relationships, it's stress, it's environmental. I feel like environmental is also not, what's the word? It's not talked about. It's just as important.
Of course,
Because
yeah.
I've been through my own health journey, and even environmental was a massive thing for
Yeah.
me. And it's based like in the psyche as well, which is also connected to environmental.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. So, we talked about the MTHFR and methylation, why it's important. What about the famous, well, you talked about the MTHFR G, you just covered that.
Yeah.
And then how do we support it was what, an activated B supplement?
So that's the thing now. Activated B is not for everyone. So it depends upon the variants of those MTHFRs that I mentioned earlier, the most famous ones.
Yes.
How well you're able to break down your metals. So, you can become an over-methylator or an under-methylator.
Okay, yes.
So if you're very sensitive to metals,
Yes.
I'm not going to throw a metal B at someone because it'll just put them into a very anxious state.
Yes, okay.
Right?
Yeah, because it's too fast forward for them,
Too
right?
fast forward. Yeah, we need to slow down. We need to look at the other genes. So nothing works in isolation in the body. We need to look at, how to support methylation as well.
Yeah.
So I would say we start off with diet first before, throwing in, supplements.
Yes.
And making sure you're having your leafy greens, making sure you're actually having organic where possible. Like, look in your berries, the things that you eat a lot of.
Yes.
You want to look at the quality and the source of that.
Okay. And also exercise, I find, is so important.
Exercise. And what you do, saunas, all of that to release toxins.
Saunas actually have helped me so much because I know I have a problem with detoxifying. And like for me, it's actually part of my regime. So if I want to continue going ahead and kicking goals and doing what I want to do to achieve optimal health, I have to have regular saunas. I've taught hot Pilates, hot yoga for 10 years.
Yeah.
And now, like when we talk about the science and I understand the whole gene variation, I understand why it's helped me for 10 years because it literally helps me detoxify. But 10 years ago, I didn't understand this sort of stuff. Like I wasn't educated around it. So it's obviously 10 years to understand my body and even just science and all this stuff. But even research has advanced when it comes to this area because we're dealing with cases and we learn from these cases.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh gosh, MTHFR.
Yeah.
All right, so we've covered the MTHFR, we've covered the liver, and it's now mood and stress. So
Mood and stress.
I feel like this is a big one.
Oh, it's massive, massive.
Yeah.
Back to methylation.
Okay.
Because
it has to do with that.
Yeah,
Yes.
because if we don't, every single cell needs, and we methylate every second of every single day.
And everything's connected.
Yeah,
It's like
exactly.
you can't focus on this and then not focus on that. Yeah.
So, our neurotransmitters are produced in our brain.
Yes.
And also in our gut.
Yes.
And we need to methylate to actually activate them and to produce our end product. So, for example, tryptophan needs to be methylated.
The way you say things, sorry, do you know what? You even said same.
Yeah.
Is Sam. I
Sam.
call it Sammy.
Sammy, yeah.
But like people, anyway, so tryptophan.
Sam, because, I don't put the E on
That's
there.
okay. It's all good. You know your stuff.
So that needs to be methylated, to produce neurotransmitters. So if we're not, going through those cycles, you're not actually producing optimal end products and you're experiencing mood disorders. So someone would be more likely to be stressed if they have variants on their genomic profile than someone who doesn't have that many variants. Okay.
Yeah. Understand.
So there are two key genes.
Yes.
When it comes to mood and stress. So there's the COMT that breaks down estrogen as well in the liver.
Yes.
But there's also the COMT that breaks down serotonin and other neurotransmitters.
Yeah.
And then we have the Mayo A.
Oh my God, I have the Mayo gene.
Okay, the Mayo A, is so important for actually breaking down dopamine because what happens when the Mayo A is slow, and slow I mean you may have one or two variants, one from mum and one from dad on your Mayo gene.
Yes.
And it activates really slowly and sometimes it doesn't even progress. It just is there,
Yeah.
And then what happens, you get all these neurotransmitters building up in your synapses, and you become very anxious. You become quick to anger.
Yeah.
You have a heightened startle response. You know, some people are very jumpy. They're very jittery.
I'm jittery.
Yeah. So that's what happens. And, you know, it can impact your lifestyle. It can impact your well-being, your quality of life, all of that.
Yeah, definitely.
And then if you have a fast mayo, is that you're breaking down your neurotransmitters really, really quickly.
And what's the side effect
and then
of that?
you get depressed, you're lethargic, you know, you don't...
Because you go too hard,
you procrastinate. Well, you don't have enough serotonin, you don't have enough dopamine to give you that up and go.
So if you're not breaking it down, the symptom is what?
So if you're breaking it down slowly,
Yes.
there's an influx of neurotransmitters at your synapse.
So
and
you're like
always on edge.
Jittery. So you get jittery if it's
anxious,
too slow.
Rage, anger, frustration, intolerance, impatience.
Oh, wow. So you're like like there's more to it. People aren't just like angry or whatever. It's like your gene type, you know, because you don't
Genes are talking to you.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. Whereas if you break it down really quickly, then, you know, you're going through it. And the advantage of that, you get things done. You know,
I'm a doer.
Yeah, you get it done and it's done. You get angry and it's gone. Okay?
Yeah.
But then you can also get into a rut where, I just feel really tired, lethargic. I need time out. This is too much for me. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, Mogestri. Instead of talking about personality types, we need to sit down with therapists and psychologists and go, hey, this could be one of the reasons why this person's like this. And it's like really an untouched or untapped area.
Yeah. And, you know, unfortunately, a lot of people who have a fast male think, I'm depressed. Yeah. I need to go, you know, get maybe an antidepressant
or something like that.
Like, you know, dig deeper, ask more questions.
Yeah, I know. I'm a dig deeper person.
Yeah.
I've like not probably needed to use the system and the pharmacy at one point in my life, but I was like, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
I don't care. I'm not going to do it. What is... I need to investigate, and I'm an investigator. I literally love to investigate everything.
Yeah, I mean, another caveat here is like, you know, it's not a one size fits all. It's not an answer to everyone's problems. Obviously, you have to, if you're going through things, you need the counselling, your GP, you need your meds.
Because there are things that are happening as also on top of your Mayo gene.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, how do you support the Mayo gene then?
Again, we also look at the gut because it all happens in our gut. It all begins in the gut. So, you know, the vagus nerve, which is another core.
Which is my second book, and it's coming, it's happening.
It's happening. So that's important as well because of that communication with the vagus nerve.
Okay, I understand.
Serotonin, 90%, where's it made? In your gut.
In your gut.
Yeah. Our diversity of bacteria controls our neurotransmitters.
Yeah. How interesting.
Yeah.
I just love... Like, this is so insightful for people because they can look at all their symptoms and do you know what I mean? Make sense of it.
Yeah.
Like, I understand there's specific strains that support different, you know, ailments. Like, can you confirm what the strains are for like healthy neurotransmitters?
Yeah, so bacillus is really important for dopamine production.
Yes.
Lactobacillus is important for serotonin, which is 90%, you know, made in the gut.
Yes.
And then we've got bifidobacteria, which is important for your GABA.
Sorry, I've had allergies for like 2 weeks.
That's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
For GABA production.
Okay, so bifido for GABA, lactobacillus for what? Neuro?
Lactobacillus for serotonin.
For serotonin, and what was the first one?
Bacillus, Bacillus for dopamine.
Dopamine, which is the one you gave my dad, right?
Yeah.
So do you think my dad doesn't break down, or he slowly breaks down dopamine, or he breaks it down too fast because of the Parkinson's?
Yeah, he would be breaking it down. He could even have both because I have to look at his profile again.
Okay, yeah.
Because you can get both a fast one and a slow one, which will cancel out one another.
Oh, wow.
So that's double whammy.
That's a double whammy, and he's an under detoxifier.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so they're the three strains. And obviously to our audience, if they're not like familiar with the space, we can have the information on the podcast of where the strains are to help them support it because I will share
absolutely. But like I said, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Oh, of course.
And in terms of, especially the microbiome, there's no good and bad. It's all symbiotic in nature. So, you need the good, the bad to balance everything out.
Absolutely.
You need that diversity as well.
Yeah, it's like multitude of strains.
Yeah.
How can we support the gut for a healthier mind? Because obviously everyone knows the gut-brain connection now. We're a bit more familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the vagus nerve is definitely the sensory highway, but I know there's also the gut-brain connection through certain blood streams, like certain avenues that affect the brain. Can you tell us what that is or how we can support the gut?
So definitely with the postbiotics,
Yeah.
we mentioned earlier, but prebiotics.
Yeah.
And sometimes you really need to look into microbiome testing to see what's already in your gut.
Yes.
To be strain specific, because the thing with probiotics, going out there and buying a multi-strain probiotic, sometimes will actually do you a bit more of a disservice.
Yeah, I've heard that, because you don't know specifically what it is, and you're just sort of assuming that I need all of them just in case. I'm just going to cover the basis. I'm just take everything.
Yeah, this is a case where you can have too much of a good thing.
Okay.
And, and then, you get the FODMAP sensitivity and the SIBO and all of that. So you want to really make sure that you are strain specific depending upon your symptoms and how severe it is.
So that's so important, because is one of the symptoms that SIBO that you mentioned, if you're overpopulated with strains that you don't need?
Yeah, because that actually is an indication that there's a little bit of bacterial species in your small intestine, and in the intestine there shouldn't really be any bacteria.
And that's what SIBO is.
Yeah,
but that could be from taking a multi-strain of probiotic, or too much that you don't need.
Yeah, and not having a good intact gut barrier.
Yes, yeah. And that, to me, Mogestri, I found that to be the ultimate thing.
Yeah.
The gut barrier is, for me, the most ultimate thing.
Yeah. Like, especially we're talking about the histamine and its impact. I mean, the histamine cells are on the lining of the gut as well.
Okay.
They're the mast cells, which are so closely connected to the immune.
Okay.
So we need to always prime the immune system.
And I know there's certain strains, like one strain's for IBS and one strain's for immune system and one strain's for daily probiotics.
Exactly. And there's a lot of probiotics that are not conducive for someone who has a histamine or histamine sensitivity.
Yeah.
Can just make things worse.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Oh, wow. We've covered everything.
Have we?
We've actually covered everything, and we're like 15 minutes in. So just sort of closing off, and this is where we can sort of just share each other's minds and our thoughts about this whole topic. Because I know the gut is literally a whole different podcast. And I know we've just covered it briefly with methylation and gut.
Yeah.
I know for me, the whole podcast is about be thyself, to be your true self, whether that's your authentic self. And being authentic is the highest vibration you can ever function in.
Yeah.
Your true self is, how you're showing up to the world. Now, in a nutshell, what would you say if you were to give advice to the audience of how they could be thyself with this nutrigenomics and gut testing, because that's your specialty? What would that be?
Okay, I would say definitely strive for equilibrium in all you do.
An equilibrium balance.
Balance in your output, because it definitely affects your input.
Yeah.
So it affects because what are our cells doing every single second of the day? They are striving for that homeostatic balance.
Yes.
Right? So just match it. Don't do anything too extreme. Take yourself out of an environment where you feel anxious. Look after your stress, look after yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Especially if you're prone for stress.
Yeah.
I do that now. I just leave. Not leave, but I actually I choose where I want to be, or how much I want to deal with it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's some things that I have to show up for certain reasons.
Yeah.
But I also choose what they are. And I did say in the last podcast, I live in this matrix, but I only 70% of that is non-matrix. I live my purpose. I love what I do.
Yeah.
I look after my health, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So equilibrium would be the best.
Equilibrium will be the key.
Balance,
And also, like we said, we mentioned quite a few times today, it's your genes are not your destiny. right?
Yeah.
It's every single thing you put in your mouth, every thought you put in your brain, every movement, they all speak to your genes.
Yeah.
So it's about your environment, it's about your epigenetics. So, your genes are definitely not your destiny, but they are your predisposition.
They're the predispositions.
Yeah.
So your thoughts,
The thoughts.
and which is your psyche, and I say your psyche, which is passed down to you, or things that have happened to you, and we've talked about the mindset also influence your epigenetics or your gene, your gene predispositions. So that's definitely one avenue to look at. Someone asked me the other day, how do we work on the cells, like, cellular level? And obviously we've covered that today. But I'm like, if you're going into a wholesome diet again because you want to shift and change and you want to just transform your life again, you could eat really healthy food, but all the damage you've done to the pre-existing cells, like the whatever you've done before, you also need to work on them.
Yes.
And then keep refeeding your RNA, which produces your DNA, and that's going to regenerate really healthy cells, but you've actually got 70% of the other cells that have been, what's the word? Like they've been oxidized or stressed or, not fed the right stuff.
Exactly.
And then that stuff. So it'd be working on what you've done and created, and then working on all the working on a healthy diet and looking after your liver and your gut and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a complete net, like it's a complete family.
Yeah.
That we can't leave anyone out.
We cannot leave anyone out. And that's the whole point of the podcast. It's holistic health. It's looking at all facets of health.
Yes.
I've tapped on inner child therapy, which is basically the subconscious belief of what runs us, and most of the day, which is associated with your psyche, whether that could be positive or negative things. So looking at that and changing that to feed your genes.
Yeah.
Looking at your genes, looking at your gut.
I know, it's like be thyself, know thyself as well.
You have to know it. And Nutrigenomics really helps you know it.
Exactly.
So that's how you can optimize being it.
And, information is power. So don't be afraid, because you're just going to optimize your well-being.
I think information. I say that all the time. Like, in my role, I do a bit of selling, but I don't sell.
Yeah.
I just train and educate, and knowledge is actual power.
Yeah.
And that's how you get that going. So, Mogestri, it was so lovely having you.
Jo. It's been so much of fun.
It was so good. I love this topic. You're just like, yes, back and forth.
Yeah.
Just things that we talk about.
really well. Yeah.
We do. And things that we've talked about.
Things that, all our pet, topics.
Literally when we're outside of the studio, and I was like, I need to bring Mogestri in.
Oh, thank you for this. It's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this recording. This is episode 12. It will be available on YouTube. It will also be available on Spotify. Okay, thank you.
Lovely. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.